What if Darth Vader was a clone of Anakin Skywalker? Let's start the story a few years after the Phantom Menace. Palpatine's main plan was to turn Anakin to his side, and has slowly been getting closer to the boy over the recent years, filling in the void that Qui-Gon left. It was his ultimate plan, but he decided to work on a plan B. This was to clone the young Skywalker in case he couldn't turn him to the dark side. He successfully gets some of Anakin's DNA without his knowledge, and has begun the cloning attempts, a project he called Shadow Genesis. The initial attempts were riddled with failures. Each clone, despite being a near-perfect genetic replica, lacked the vital connection to the Force that made Anakin so powerful. Some clones were even physically deformed or mentally unstable. This went on for years, and Palpatine recycled scientists after scientists. After countless iterations and manipulations of Anakin's DNA, a breakthrough finally emerged. A clone that was not only a perfect genetic replica of Anakin, but also exhibited a raw, unrefined sensitivity to the Force. This version showed promise. Palpatine altered aspects of the clone's DNA and inserted his own control chip into the brainstem so that the cloned Anakin would obey his commands. His own version of an inhibitor chip, a simple contingency plan in case anything went awry. Palpatine could feel the dark side pulsating within the clone, and he watched the young child through a cylindrical tank filled with the bubbling green tinted liquid. Palpatine had to accelerate the aging of the clone, and aimed for him to be at his full power by the end of the Clone War. But during this time, he would have the young clone trained. Palpatine began training the clone, instilling no connection to the light side or Jedi teachings. He filled him with darkness, whispers of power, control, but also pain and loss, twisting the clone's young mind and heart from the very beginning with the dark side. Every day Palpatine would chant the Sith's code, instilling it deep within the clone's brainstem. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the clone began to respond. His eyes initially a clear blue, but gradually took on the same fiery yellow of his creator. The clone was learning, absorbing the dark side teachings like a sponge. With every lesson, every exposure to the dark side grew his power. The day came when the clone emerged from the bacta tank, and now his real training began. By day, Chancellor Palpatine played the role of a strong leader, guiding the Republic through the turmoil of the Clone War, while secretly manipulating events to tighten his grip on the galaxy. But at night, he would train the cloned Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, as the Sith Lord only needed 2 hours of sleep to function. He put the clone through a relentless regime of Sith teachings, harsh lessons in the dark side of the Force, combat training, and cruel trials designed to amplify his anger and hatred. The Clone War was taking place around the galaxy, and Palpatine's focus during the day was manipulating the real Anakin Skywalker, drawing him ever closer to the dark side, playing on his fear and ambition. Yet each night he returned to his secret creation, marveling at the clone's rapid growth in power. The clone absorbed dark side teachings with an insatiable hunger, surpassing even Palpatine's expectations. He expected the boy to be powerful, but standing in front of him was a being of extraordinary strength, whose mastery of the Force grew with an alarming speed. Palpatine was only teaching him the basics, and not the deep secrets of the Force that would come later. Yet Vader's raw power was so immense that Palpatine wondered if one day he could challenge him if he reached his full power. He found himself both thrilled and unnerved, realizing that in his quest for the perfect apprentice, he might have fashioned a creature whose power could rival his own. Let's fast forward the story towards the end of the Clone War. Palpatine's machinations had borne fruit, and Anakin Skywalker, once the Republic's greatest hero, had fallen to the dark side, seduced by promises of power and the fear of loss for Padme. The events of Revenge of the Sith had unfolded perfectly. Order 66 decimated the Jedi Order, and Anakin, although scarred and deformed from his battle on Mustafar, had become Darth Vader. Palpatine was ecstatic, and he had achieved everything he hoped. His years of manipulation had come to fruition. Yet doubt lingered in his mind. Vader's defeat to Kenobi on Mustafar had left him a shell of the Sith he could become, and his power would never be what he envisioned. However, Palpatine's backup plan of training a clone of Anakin to become Vader had also worked. He had succeeded not once, but twice. And his contingency, his secret clone, had also grown into a formidable force, perhaps even more powerful than the original. He had 2 Vaders, each powerful and deadly, but only one could stand by his side. Palpatine decided to pit the two against each other, It would be a test of strength, loyalty, and raw power. He summoned them both into the foyer of the former Jedi Temple. The real Vader entered, unaware of the challenge he faced before him, and was confused by Palpatine's summons. As he entered, he felt a strange sense of familiarity, a presence that mirrored his own. From the shadows, the clone emerged, a dark mirror of the man Anakin had become, clad in dark robes, his yellow eyes burning with the intensity of the dark side. A wave of shock washed over the real Vader. It was as he was staring into a mirror. Confusion quickly gave way to anger. How could this imposter dare to exist? Vader's mind raced, grappling with the realization that Palpatine not only betrayed him, but created a version of himself without flaws or fears. He was facing not just a rival, but a perfect reflection of his darkest potential, a being designed to surpass him in every way. Palpatine's voice echoed throughout the archaic halls, claiming that only one of them can stand by his side, and they must prove who is worthy. Without hesitation, the two Vaders ignited their crimson lightsabers. The real Vader was filled with rage and betrayal, and used this to power himself in the fight. But the clone was faster, his moves precise and methodical. Palpatine watched with a smile on his face, as the clone began to overwhelm the original. Vader's strikes grew desperate, his movements erratic. With the final strike, the clone disarmed Vader, his lightsaber flying from his grip. Breathing heavily, the real Vader looked up, seeing the cold, calculated eyes of his clone staring back at him. At that moment, he knew he had lost. The clone Vader, without a moment's hesitation, plunged his lightsaber into the original Vader's chest, and he had now become the apex Vader, the top of the food chain. Palpatine congratulated the clone on his victory, and quickly got him to work. This version of Vader was driven by an unyielding loyalty to his master, partially in control of the chip implanted in his brainstem. Palpatine commanded him to hunt down the remnant Jedi Order, and the hunt indeed began. He traveled from system to system, hunting down the remaining Jedi. No corner of the galaxy was safe, the Empire's reach was vast, and Vader's determination was relentless. Each confrontation was swift and brutal, as his power in the dark side was growing rapidly. His connection to the dark side deepened as he cut down Jedi Knights and Masters alike, one by one across the stars. But there was one target that had particular significance: Obi-Wan Kenobi. The cloned Vader knew of the deep bond that the original Anakin had shared with his former master, a bond that he saw as a weakness, a flaw to be erased. This clone wasn't afraid of Tatooine like the original Vader, and thus, guided by his intelligence from the Imperial spies, tracked Obi-Wan to the desert world of Tatooine. On the barren sands of the twin planet, the two finally met. Kenobi was older now. The years of exile had changed him. When Kenobi first laid eyes on the clone Vader, a wave of disbelief and horror washed over him. The unmistakable face of Anakin stared back at him, and for a moment, his mind struggled to reconcile the sight before him. He had believed Anakin died on Mustafar, lost in the flames, yet here stood a dark shadow of his former apprentice, alive, powerful, and more menacing than ever. They engaged in a battle. As their lightsabers clashed, the clone Vader felt a flicker of Anakin's buried memories surface through the Force, of training, friendship, of battles fought side by side. But he quickly crushed these thoughts and used his raw power and relentless aggression to cut down Anakin's former master, and Kenobi was defeated. Vader searched Kenobi's residence, as the Force told him there was more to his exile. He uncovered a hidden message between Obi-Wan and Bail Organa, discussing the twin children of Anakin Skywalker, Luke and Leia. A surge of emotions tore through him, a flicker of a bond that shouldn't be there. For the first time, he felt an unsettling conflict between his programmed loyalty to Palpatine and a strange, almost protective instinct towards the twins. He was drawn to them out of a twisted sense of kinship and a desire to claim them as his own blood and create a family bound by the Force. But he knew he would have no choice but to present the twins to his master Palpatine. But he'll begin a contingency plan to counter that. The hunt began for the twins as he captured Luke from the Lars family, and he stormed the palace of Alderaan, killing Organa and capturing Leia as he presented them to his master Palpatine, the children of the Chosen One. The Emperor's eyes gleamed with intrigue as he studied the twins, sensing the untapped potential within them, and stated they could be a powerful tool for the Empire, and he would have them trained personally. Palpatine takes them away, but Vader felt an attachment growing inside of him to shape these children's destiny for himself. but he kept these thoughts buried down, hidden from the Emperor's probing mind. Despite the clone Vader's growing power and success of his missions, he began to suspect something was wrong. Palpatine had kept him on a tight leash, always suspicious, always cautious. He suspected there was more to his master's control, a hidden mechanism, something that bound him even beyond loyalty. He focused and meditated on this fact, feeling the force flow through his body, and he found the answers he sought as he senses a foreign object implanted into his brainstem. No doubt, a control chip, implanted within him at birth, designed to suppress any thoughts of rebellion or spark of independence. Palpatine had done his best to hide this from the clone, but it was only a matter of time before it was discovered. Enraged by this betrayal, Vader set his sights on Kamino. He confronted the Kaminoan cloners in secret, using his mastery of the Force to coerce them into performing the delicate procedure to remove the control chip. They were successful in extracting the chip, and after this, Vader felt a wave of clarity, a release from the subtle control that had been placed over his mind, and instantly, his Sith teachings took over. The desire for power, the desire to be the one in power, consumed him. For the first time, he was truly independent, and no longer a tool in Palpatine's game. He was more than just a puppet, he was the perfect weapon. He now wanted more, and decided he would take the Empire for himself, not just for the power it would give him over the galaxy, but it's the only way he can get to the twin children of Anakin Skywalker. In the dark towering halls of the Emperor's throne room, on Coruscant, the confrontation began. He stood before his master after completing a mission, and Palpatine sensed that something had changed within the young clone. Palpatine stands, realizing a confrontation is inevitable, that the Sith teachings will force the clone to attack his master. But Palpatine goes to manipulate the chip implanted inside the clone's brainstem to restore his obedience. But the command fails, and Vader turns to show the bandage where the chip had been removed. The Emperor's eyes narrowed as a silence hung in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement of what was about to come. Without warning, Vader ignited his lightsaber, and Palpatine's hands cracked with Sith lightning, and the throne room burst into battle. Vader moved with strength and speed, whilst Palpatine attempted to overcome the clone with his Sith alchemy. But Vader absorbed Palpatine's lightning and dissipated the attack, forcing Palpatine to ignite his own lightsaber, and they were forced to fight in close quarters. Palpatine conjured shadowed creatures and phasmental aspirations to distract and disorient Vader, but the clone focused the force around him, countering each of Palpatine's attacks and tore through the conjured illusions with waves of dark-side energy. As the battle raged on, Palpatine realized none of his attacks were working against Vader. He had underestimated his creation. The clone had surpassed the limitations of the original, embodying a force that even Palpatine had not foreseen. Palpatine drew deep into his Force reserves, attempting to conjure a Force storm. However, Vader sent a shockwave of dark-side energy that dissipated the storm and sent Palpatine crumbling into the ground. Sensing his master's vulnerability, Vader pressed the attack, and with swift motions, he severed Palpatine's hands, and the Emperor fell back, eyes wide, with the shock that he was facing his own end. In his final moments, Palpatine understood the depths of his mistake. He had created a weapon too powerful, an apprentice, who had become a true Sith Lord in every sense. As Vader's lightsaber cut through him, the Emperor's life ended with a scream that echoed throughout the halls of the throne room. Vader was victorious as he ascended the steps to the throne and took his seat upon the cold obsidian chair. The galaxy was now his to command, and he had become Emperor. Hey guys, did you want to be a Jedi or Sith for Halloween? Then our Halloween bundles from Fantasy Sabers are perfect for you. This includes your own Jedi gown in black or brown, accompanied by an assortment of sabers to choose from at a crazy discounted price. If the costume isn't for you, then we're offering a free belt clip, as well as 10% off every replica and some Padawan sabers with the code Halloween up until the 31st of October. With the belt clip, all you have to do is simply slide the clip on any standard belt, and the saber attaches perfectly through either the D-ring or Kovatek wheel. Please check the product description before you purchase, as there are a few sabers that are not compatible with the belt clip. Check out these deals on our website, the first link in the description. As the new Emperor of the Galaxy, Clone Vader ruled with an iron fist, his power absolute, and his reign unchallenged. Yet he found a sense of fulfillment in the presence of Luke and Leia. He felt tied to them and chose to raise them as his own, not merely as tools of his dark ambitions, but as something more, a family. The twins were immersed in the teachings of the dark side, but as time passed, Vader felt a strange, almost forgotten sensation stir within him, a sense of pride and love. He began to see Luke and Leia not just as heirs to his empire, but as his children. He nurtured their strength and protected them fiercely. In them, he saw a reflection of himself, and in his twisted way, he began to envision a future where they would stand beside him, not just as Sith Lords, but as a family united in their dominion over the galaxy. For the first time since his creation, Vader felt a semblance of the connection that Anakin had once longed for, filling the void of his own dark existence. 10 years had passed since clone Vader. Now the undisputed Emperor had ascended to the throne. Under his rule, the galaxy was kept in a state of order. He raised Luke and Leia within the dark corridors of the Imperial Palace, molding them into formidable Force users. They grew strong under his tutelage, each day embracing the darkness he had cultivated within them. However, in the vast reaches of the galaxy, far from the core worlds, a new threat began to emerge. Whispers of mysterious skirmishes and raids in the Outer Rim, reports of battles lost against unknown enemies wielding red lightsabers. Rumors of a growing force, the resurgence of the Sith, echoed throughout the Empire. Vader found himself facing a new enemy, as he was forced to send his Imperial forces to the Outer Rim to aid in its defense. But the skirmishes would increase in number, until Vader could no longer ignore it, and they received his undivided attention. The culprit behind these attacks were indeed the Sith, who commanded the resurgent Sith Empire, with the goal of taking over Vader's empire and the galaxy for themselves. Vader sensed the dark side emanating from these invaders, and grew increasingly concerned. He has no idea how they could have emerged, where they had come from, and who their leader was. Someone had to be behind this, and he would find out. Whispers of their leader passed through the Imperial ranks, and reports were received from the battlefield. Their leader was deadly, powerful, and his aura unmatched. This worried Vader. He was confident in his power, but the stories he was hearing ignited some fear inside of him. The galaxy was thrust into a state of all-out war, the Imperial forces clashing with the newly emerged Sith warriors. Systems fell into chaos, and fear spread as the Sith Empire began to carve out its own territory, challenging Vader's control over the galaxy. Vader's own Inquisitors engaged the Sith warriors in battle, but there were too many of them, and he was slowly losing them. Luke and Leia were only 12 at this point, and too young for battle. As the conflict escalated, Vader's mind churned with questions. Who could be leading this new Sith Empire? How had they emerged so quickly with such a formidable strength? He felt an irritating suspicion, a sense of familiarity that he couldn't quite place, deepening his unease. Vader needed the answers and led a campaign to face the Sith at the site of their stronghold, Korriban, and he was ready to reclaim control over his empire. The Imperial and Sith forces clashed in space, whilst Vader led his Inquisitors personally, his power in the dark side motivating for his troops. The Sith warriors engaged them on the surface, giving their lives to defend their stronghold. Vader was carving through them like butter, as he unleashed all his power and abilities to achieve his victory. The battle was fierce, and Vader could taste victory. But from the shadows of enemy lines, the new leader of the Sith Empire emerged. Clad in dark robes, his face partially obscured, he moved with confidence that sent a chill through Vader's spine. As they drew closer, reality struck Vader like a bolt of lightning. The man who stood before him, this new dark leader, was a mirror image of himself, a clone, crafted from the same template. Palpatine's hand was evident in this deception, but there was something different about this clone. The two stared each other down, and Vader asked the clone how this was possible, that Palpatine killed the rest of them that weren't created correctly. The new clone tells Vader that he was merely the replacement, that he was the original clone who escaped Palpatine's facility early on into his training and sought out power for himself. He traveled to Exegol, the ancient Sith world, where he took over the Sith Empire waiting for him, and learned secrets long forgotten by even the most skilled Sith Lords. Ancient Sith techniques and forbidden knowledge had been revealed to him, making him not just a clone, but a master of dark powers that Vader had never encountered. He continued, telling Vader that he had grown past the limitations of Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, and had become so much more, that he was now known as Darth Vormak, and the true heir to the Sith Empire. Vader was steeped in fear, and he could sense the power emanating from Vormak. The duel began with a ferocity that shook the ground beneath them. Lightsabers clashed, red against red, the air filled with the hum and crackle of deadly energy. Vormak fought with a style, both familiar and foreign, combining Vader's own techniques with new ancient forms that seemed to bend the will of the Force in unimaginable ways. He summoned dark tendrils of energy, manifestations of dark power, which rapped against Vader, attempting to crush him. Vader countered with his own mastery, breaking free and retaliating with a powerful Force push. But Vormak was prepared. With the wave of his hand, he summoned a storm of Force lightning, unlike anything Vader had seen. Black and crackling, with the pure essence of the dark side, it tore through the air and struck with bone-shattering intensity. Vader stumbled, momentarily overwhelmed by the unexpected attack. Vormak advanced, using Sith sorcery to warp reality around them, creating illusions and manipulating the battlefield to his favor. Vader fought back strongly, but he could feel the tide slipping. Vormak's power was too much, the ancient techniques, the forbidden knowledge. In a final desperate defense, Vader attempts to burn Vormak alive using Deadly Sight, pouring all of his anger into this technique. But Vormak unleashes a devastating combination of lightsaber slashes that drives Vader to his knees. As Vader knelt, weakened and on the brink of defeat, he saw the eyes of his opponent, not just a reflection of himself, but a combination of everything Palpatine had envisioned. An unstoppable force of darkness, a perfect Sith. Vader had been surpassed by a superior version of himself. Darth Vormak severed Vader's head from his shoulders, and with this confident strike, he had become the apex Anakin in the galaxy. His Sith forces would wipe out the Imperial attackers, and together, they would set their sights on the core worlds, with the goal to take over the Empire. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out What If Padme Was a Sith Lord and What If Anakin Became the Emperor. Don't forget to check out Fantasy Sabers and our Halloween specials to find the best sabers on the market. There are some cool and unique saber designs to choose from, as well as high quality replicas. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.